Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. I've got a question for Chris that he doesn't know is coming his way. We recorded an episode and I was going through my head like maybe a listing presentation strategy. So I want to talk to Chris about possibly how this might work out and how you do it. So, okay, let's say that you're in a marketplace, and again, I don't think that you need to do this for every listing. This is a complete disclaimer to everybody. I think this is something that you would do on a special occasion where you need to win the business. Or again, if I'm a competitive person, and even if it's a smaller listing, I'd probably still do this if I knew that ultimately I was up against other people and I needed to really stand out as a point of difference. So first things first, let's say you get an appointment and you're asked to come in and sell a home or do a listing presentation, or you get an expired listing, whatever it is. Hey, can you come over and give me an idea of what it would take to price the property or sell the property? No problem. This is what I would probably go with in a structure. Is it okay if I send somebody from my team or professional photographer, or I come over, either one, whatever's going to work, and take a few photos of the property before we actually sit down and do the presentation? The reason I want to do that is that I just want to be able to really create a proposal, get to know the home, so that therefore I can do appropriate comparatives, because it really comes down to also is that what is your property offering versus anything else that we're competing against in the marketplace. I don't think anyone would say no to that. Chris, what do you think?
No, I don't think so. The only thing I would have a little bit of hesitation is if you went on your own, then it would turn into the listing presentation while you're there. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think it almost has to be someone else, like to come and snap photos or whatever. Even if it's another agent, maybe you guys paired together. You know what I mean? You pair together and you say, "Hey, I'll do yours if you do mine," like situation.
But it's also how much would it be? How much would you charge if you had a really good relationship with an agent to go and do 5 to 6 professional photos that you're in there for 10 minutes if you're locally in the area?
Yeah, if you're locally in the area, it would cost you nothing. It would cost you like $100, 150, maybe minimum.
Exactly right. Like to do up a proposal and everything that's customizable to their home. And again, you might use it on everything. You might use it on one listing. You might use it as something where you're looking for an edge. You might get that call up for a $10 million listing and you need an edge. This is going to be it, I think. And so
you can also ask the homeowner maybe to snap photos themselves. I don't know how you would. That might be a little bit like, hey, I would love to see a couple photos of the inside. You know, I drove past it a few times, blah, blah, blah. But maybe you'd have a little bit of an issue at that point.
Do you know, like, so again, we're diving into the process of listing presentation. We're not getting to the big point here that I want to get to. But in my presentation, what I typically do is that if you're from a listing process perspective, before I even go in, let's say, Chris, you and Danielle called me and said, "Hey, Ben, can you come over and give me an idea of what our property we're thinking of selling? So we'd love to get your opinion on how that all works." I then say to you, I'm like, "Hey, Chris, I'm not in the right position in order to take down a couple of notes and actually ask you a few questions. Do you mind if I call you back at another time here later today? What's good for you?" Well, around 1 o'clock's fine. Great, excellent. So I call you at 1 o'clock. I'm like, "Hey, Chris, I'm really sorry about that, but I'm now in a really good position to be able to take some notes and ask you some questions about your property." And then I go through all of this stuff. I'm like, so I go through the thing that I'd really like to start with, if it's okay with you, is that, can you give me a virtual tour of your property? Can you give me an understanding of what it looks like? Okay, room by room, and let's talk about different things. And I get them really engaged about it, because then I understand whether or not they're house proud or they're not house proud. Let's start at the front. Let's start at the front of the property. What's the street appeal like for your property? Or the street appeal is like really good. You know, we've got a big lot. You know, there's a lot of room at the front. Blah 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 blah. And then, you know, at that moment, I might go, "Chris, would you be opposed to maybe me sending over one of my professional photographers and just snapping a few photos for me before I get there? This will allow me to be really accurate with the comps, but then it'll be able for me to put a proposal together that's actually a little bit more accurate in the sense of what we might do in order to, you know, compete against the other listings." Notice I tried to remove the word marketing out of my vocabulary there. Okay. So again, this might be a concept that I'm diving too deep into or whatever it is, but
you also might, at that point, you might get an understanding on how private they are for like your future open houses.
100%. Right? Because also, but Chris, if they're not fucking engaging with me on the conversation about their home, maybe this isn't the right one to do this proposal for. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe if they're not house proud, like at that point, or maybe if they are house proud. I don't know.
But if they're house proud and they're really diving in, "Oh yeah, Ben, we've spent a lot of money in upgrades, and you know the front was da 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 da."
I'd love to see those upgrades. Like, can I send a photographer through?
It sounds like you've done a lot of work there, or hey, it sounds like it's a really nice property. You know, I think I know it from driving past it in the neighborhood. Would you mind if I sent he's going to be in the area here in the next 24 hours. He'll pop over and he'll just take a few snaps for you, or my assistant, or blah 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 blah. Like you said, another agent in my office. You might not tell him it's another agent, but there's just an opportunity to get that. because this whole thing that we were talking about with the Google imaging or Gemini's imaging or Nano Banana or whatever they bloody call it, okay, is that I think that you could do some really cool things in that situation to be like, okay, this is your home as it stands at the moment. This is what we could do in order to enhance it if we were to stage it and da-da-da-da. Because then you could really dive into the perspective of that Mr. and Mrs. Seller marketing is a made-up word in the real estate community where it keeps us relevant. What I'm really here to do is help your property compete. Okay, that is what my specialty is. And in order to compete, we are going to have to present an unbelievable product. Okay, the 3 Ps in real estate that people typically go with are put it in the MLS, okay, put a sign out the front and pray. What we're going to do is that we're going to take a complete approach on how we're going to compete with other listings in the marketplace, and that's based on product and it's based on price. Now, in order to
I would throw preparation in there. Like this is like how do we prepare your property?
Preparation, product, price. There you go. Preparation, and that's awesome.
It's football season, so I always love this quote, but like the separation is in the preparation. And this is like, that's how you can say, how are we going to separate ourselves from the competing homes in the market? We're going to prepare better than everybody else. And that's like, I don't know if it's Lombardi or who it is.
Listen to the dialogue we're getting out of this. Like, it's like a home is never on the market in isolation. It's always on the market in competition with everybody else. Okay. Separation comes by preparation. So therefore what we're going to do is one of the P's that we use in our 3P strategy in order to compete against everything else that's on the marketplace is that we're going to make sure that the preparation is on point with the things that we can do in order to offer the best product. Okay. The best product is our next thing. We're going to make sure that the product is up to scratch and beating everything else. And then price, we're going to make sure that we're accurate on that front. But if we get the first 2 right, that means we're going to exceed price also possibly. You know, like that's that's a conversation that gets the juice flowing a little bit with the sense that shit, these people know what they're doing.
100%. And I think most people, you could even tie this into like, if you're going to sell your car, you wouldn't take it to the dealership dirty. Like, and you can walk into this and, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you know, I had my photographer come through. Here's what he took of the before photos. And here's just a little tweaks that I think maybe you could enhance the property. And that's if we want to go down that route to make it more appealing to buyers in the marketplace.
It's literally like a conversation I had with a dealer. I took back in Australia, I was upgrading my car to my Mercedes, and I took my BMW in, and it had a cracked windscreen. And he's like, "Oh, I've got to take $5,000 off the price bin because that's a structural screen." I'm like, "Oh, okay, no problem, that's fine." I wasn't making a decision that day. I just went and got it changed, and it was like $1,000. And it's like,
exactly.
You know, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like, well, I've got to repaint the house. Well, it's $10,000 to repaint the house. Yeah, but I want 50 off because it's my time, you know, or whatever it is. So it's all of those
things.
With
the buyers being so particular these days when it comes to all their, you know, hoops and stuff and all the stuff that they're putting inside of their offers, like you could be that's usually one of the reasons why everybody's backing out of all their, like all the buyer agreements and everything like that. Everyone's backing out right now because they just find the smallest little things that it's wrong with the property. And if you just address those ahead of time and get those out of the way, like you're not going to have those issues from falling out of escrow.
And really back to the real point and why I wanted to bring this up. Do you think that it's got the capability, and this is a question to you, is that if you took a couple of snaps of kitchens, bathrooms, and main living area, and you're going to have to prompt the AI or the Gemini thing pretty well to say, don't change the current furniture, enhance it, or paint this color, or you know, some of the differences that you might be able to see and make could really be something that maybe you could get your stager to tell you about some of the prompts as well, or what would you do?
Or the furniture that they have. Like, so if you do have a specific stager and they have a specific, you know, couch or something like that you've used at previous properties, maybe you include, hey, take this couch from this photo and stage it into this other photo. Like it has done that. And the little things that I've done in it, I've changed doors through Gemini already. So I've taken a picture that had like a wood door, and I was like, change this door to you know, a see-through glass door, like a front door. It's done that. I said with frosted glass, it did that, no problem. I've done paint on the outside of a house, changing a white gray house into a green house. I've done that. So little things like that, it's already done. So I wouldn't have any issue with it.
Like, I'm having a thought here, Chris. Like, what if you go into the perfect property and it's a brand new construction home?
Yep.
The reality is, it doesn't matter at that point, because then at least you know what you're walking into. You've been able to compare the property better. And also then you can just do a customized report for them with their own property photos rather than telling them how you're going to change everything. Like, I think that's another part of it as well, that you could pivot at that moment and just have a better preparation of their product.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think. Like, obviously, if it's a new build, you have a lot more comps and a lot more like usually a new build's not built in isolation. Like there are obviously a few, and like in Oregon, you get a lot of
But it is
those.
in competition.
It
It's
is in
always in
competition.
competition.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
always in competition, but they're not built like one new build is usually not built by itself. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like now they're built in communities and stuff like that, where the home down the road has already set the table for this one and XYZ. So,
indeed. Well, again, it's just a
or
little.
Oregon and Nick, you get a lot more custom builds. Like I think
Yeah.
that, yeah. So
Yeah. Well, again, I think that the reality, what I'm trying to say is that you can use this to your advantage to have an absolute edge because nobody else is going to that effort. Again, it might not be for every listing. It might be for that special moment where you need to compete, or you need to actually, or it's a price point that you're trying to break into. But ultimately, if you're looking to break into a luxury marketplace in your market, why wouldn't you be doing that in order to show people what you can do? I think you would never be competed against with any other agent locally. You just need the opportunity at that point.
And at worst case, it just shows that you are ahead of the curve when you're thinking of all the marketing avenues and all the different, like you're thinking of all the technology angles and everything like that. So when you go into those conversations, like you could say, hey, this might not be for us, but I am actually trying to think of like, how can we use AI to our benefit? And here's a couple examples that I've spun out. We don't have to use it like XYZ, but I just think
Exactly.
it could help us separate ourselves when it comes to the competition.
And it's even then, you might not even market it online in that way. I've got a property at the moment that is a complete almost tear down. Is that maybe you're taking room by room, and you're saying to the seller is that imagination is not what many people have. Just like myself, when I walk into an individual home, I can't really envision what it's going to look like. So this is actually a brochure that we would do up for them to show them the scope of what it could look like. And if we can show them the scope of what it could look like, then I can also get my contractor to give me a bid on what it would take in order to change room by room around sort of certain estimates, because that's the next thing, is that if it looks amazing, people think that it's going to cost them 50 grand where it might be only 10 grand to enhance that room.
I got bummed the other day looking at a property, and I was like, we would never be able to furnish this like how they furnished it. And I was like, I love how they furnished it. And I'm like, but there's no way we're like in the next 5 years we would have the like amount of money to just spend on their furnishing. Like I was like, if you think about the home isn't what's selling me right now. It's like the outdoor area and everything like that. And I'm like, they're going to take all that stuff with them. So
yeah, exactly right. Indeed. All right, just another idea. Thank you, mate.
Thanks.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.